invitation service. If you'd like to have a name prayed over, you can write it on a piece of paper and put it into the prayer box. That's right there. And it'll be prayed over for a month. The Sacred Feminine's meeting tomorrow at 12 noon. If you have any remedy that you have worked with throughout, your life, just bring it and talk to us about it. That's at 12 noon tomorrow. And we're doing the sacred Tibetan bowls. Each bowl begins as a molten mixture of the special 7 sacred metals. It takes 3 to 4 people to hammer each bowl. One holds the hot metal with blacksmith tongs, while 2 or 3 others alternate hammering and chanting, infusing the bowl with healing intentions even as it's being created. Bowls typically range in size from 3 inches to 14 inches in diameter, but can also be larger or smaller. Just really get comfortable. I don't even care if you lay down on the pew. If you just can let the sound go in and through your body, it's a very healing experience, and it doesn't matter who sees you laying down or sitting up. It's who cares, It's to get your body out of the way and just let the sounds go through you. So if you're dealing with any kind of healing problem, whatever you have to do to completely let go of your body and turn it over to the sounds, please do it.
Good evening, everyone. On occasion, you will read in the Bible that when Jesus gives a certain discourse, he follows it with the idea that let those who have ears to hear, hear, and eyes to see, see. Really what it amounts to is those that have a willingness to hear and a willingness to see will hear and see the truth that they may have been missing. And at least tonight, some of you have been willing to hear. Last week, you were here and you heard we're changing the service time from 6 o'clock to 7. And some of you are here. Maybe some of you came at 6 o'clock. But in any case, you are here by divine appointment. That doesn't seem to be the reality when we're living in the initial state of consciousness, that we are involved in the school of life by divine appointment. And if we're awake in the process of living, we will ultimately discover the illusions that defy our wholeness, peace of mind, happiness, insight, and love. So life is set up for that to actually occur. It may be that we have such distractions, we have created such distractions in life that some people don't ever arrive in that consciousness that life is designed for us to arrive in. So I'll be talking about that again tonight, because it is such a beautiful thing that we are involved in miracle consciousness, whether we know it or not. That greater intelligence that we refer to as God is actually existing at the core of our consciousness, of our being. And so it is necessary for us to eventually awaken to that reality, and when we awaken to that reality, we will find life truly worth living. Until then, life will be sporadic, unrealistic in a sense that we won't be able to make life work, so that there'll be times of suffering, maybe quite a bit of suffering. And then, as I said, if people are continually distracted, they will suffer, and they will suffer uselessly. Let me share this with you from Dr. William Wright. This is his definition of sin. And this individual was around about 30 years ago. He may still be around, I don't know. But this is his definition of sin, which I think really says it all. Sin is being ignorant of the cause of our own suffering. Sin is being ignorant of the cause of our own suffering. This is a reference to the anxiety and the conflict and guilt that most people feel in the outer-directed, unenlightened world. So that is the sin, is that people in that world, unenlightened world or unenlightened level of consciousness, continue to believe that the conditions, circumstances, and people outside of them actually cause the conflict and the negative emotions that they are subject to. So you see, as we listen to these things, we can evaluate ourselves, because what I just said is patently untrue. Conditions and circumstances arise with our awareness, our consciousness. They do not arise separate and apart from our consciousness. And that is the illusion. So all that you are experiencing in your life rises with you moment to moment to moment as a result of the consciousness that you are believing or living in. And so, if there's going to be any transformation, any change, any enlightenment, it will only come when one seriously takes to task his or her own awareness. And let me say this, the journey to the enlightened level or the awakened state of consciousness is worth all of the necessity to practice, the arduous necessity to practice and bring forth that awareness of miracle consciousness. And something that the mind, because it is first conditioned by and raised by and educated by and in the illusion of separation, has a fear of miracle awareness. So that in itself keeps people from stepping out on faith, because it's required to step out on faith. Because we actually do not believe that the conditions and circumstances of the life we are living and how people and things come at us only by virtue of our beliefs, personal beliefs. No two people are living in the same world. Each is living in his or her collection of beliefs, and strongly, in many cases, defending those beliefs as being right. Would you believe that the masters of life live without fear, conflict, concern, or anxiety? Because they do. There is no conflict, fear, or anxiety. There is no blame, because they are no longer operating from the illusion of separation. And by the way, A Course in Miracles says, can you imagine saying this? Just think of life as people interpret it in the unenlightened world. Someone saying, the only problem anyone has is the problem of separation. Course in Miracles says that directly. The only problem you have is the problem of separation, in which your mind is defining this separate self, this personality. There's me, and then there's all that is not me. And all that is not me doesn't necessarily have my personal well-being, happiness, or self-interest at heart. I have to be on guard. I have to be defensive. I have to be careful in order to wend my way through this world of separate body minds. None of that is true. And because people believe it's true, they suffer unnecessarily. And the only thing then to do, as I said, life was designed for us to get to that place where we recognize that this definition of life doesn't work to bring fulfillment, happiness, peace, or harmony. It doesn't. But then you have to be honest with yourself in order to get there. So when you recognize that, you may seriously begin to take to task your own awareness and do the spiritual practices that open your consciousness to the reality of the presence of God. Listen to it, which doesn't belong in the world because they can't handle it, which relates the presence of God as everyone, everything in this here and now moment. So life for us, until we are along on the spiritual journey, and let me say this again because I think people really attempt to evaluate the goal of the spiritual journey in a limited way. The majesty of having no fear and sharing in the awareness of mystical peace and insight into life, moment to moment to moment, alive in life completely, unafraid, totally here, not planning, not fearing, not wanting, not resisting, not fighting. It's over, not concerned, not worried, just alive, because the mind has entered into its true relationship with the intelligence that is life. And outside of that miracle awareness, and let me go back a little bit, that is what the healing spoken about in the Course in Miracles is all about. That is the healing. While we spend a lot of time in our illusionary definition of being a separate body-mind in a world of separate others, the body seems to be the instrument that has to be cared for, pleasurized, and healed when it's not in alignment or harmony. But that's really not what A Course in Miracles is attempting to do. A Course in Miracles is attempting us to transcend the illusion itself of body consciousness. So that, as Jesus said, at that point we'll be in the world, but no longer of it. When we're of the world, every changing tide of circumstances, which appears to be coming from outside of us, tosses us this way and that way. But in this a risen state of wakefulness. You are in soul awareness, God consciousness. You still carry on your life in the mundane conditions and marketplace of the world, but you are no longer so locked into the idea of that body, mind, consciousness that you believe it is life. It is not. And from the harmony of being enlightened, you live with intuition, insight, healing love, and peace. Up, up, up. For everything. Because there's so little me in the process anymore that it is for everything. So let me share with you an illustration. This is one of the oldest illustrations in this Unity of Boulder Church, because it's one of the illustrations that I've used over time. In fact, maybe some of you have it memorized by now. Back when our children were younger, I guess around, 7, 8, 10, we would go on long summer vacations and quite often go on a rafting trip. And on occasion, we wouldn't have had the time or the thoughts that we were going to go on a rafting trip and get a permit to do on the rafting trip. We just decided to go. We had a great big rubber raft, and we would go to the Escalante River in the southwest, and we would take 2 cars, park 1 car down at the canyon where we were going to finish the river trip, and then we'd drive all the way up to where we were going to put in the raft and come rafting down the river, which would take about 3 days, sometimes 2 days. But while we were on the rafting trip one time, we did a number of them, we had our dog, Gishawi was the name of the dog we had at that time. And he was in the raft with us. And we went through this whole rafting trip, and it was an interesting trip. We ran into a lot of interesting situations. We got dumped. We had to re-rescue the raft and all of that. It was interesting, beautiful, excitement, adventure. But when we got to the canyon at the end, in the canyon at the end, it is so wide between these 500-foot walls that you have to paddle in order to get to the place where you can take the raft out and then hike a little ways to your car. But in that canyon, we were paddling, and one of the kids got the dog barking. And when Gishawi barked, the echoes from the canyons came at him, and then he just really got riled up, and he started barking back at the echoes. And then they just got worse. So all the time we're in that canyon, there's no way to convince him the canyon wasn't filled with dogs who were challenging him. So he kept barking and barking and barking. We couldn't shut him up till we threw him in the water. But it's an indication of the illusion we live in. We are forever in a state of blame when we're not in the enlightened level of awareness. We are in a state of concern, and it seems that everything, not everything, but so much of what takes place gets in our way, interferes with what we would really like to have happen. And so we're like Gashawi in the boat. We keep struggling against life in the illusion that it is coming at us, that it rises separate from us, when in fact your life rises with circumstances just as they are. No two people are living in the same world. The only two people living in the same world are those that have mastered their own consciousness and live in the world of miracle awareness or God consciousness. And so that is a calling that we have before us every day. We have this opportunity to shift from the initial consciousness of the world. There's no blame to be leveled out here. I mean, people go about blaming their parents, blaming this, blaming Lady Luck, blaming their education, blaming something else, blaming, you know. But really, it all comes down to the fact that you're still perceiving yourself as a separate body-mind in a world of separate others, and that's not true. So now, if you never got anything out of unity, you never got anything out of these messages that come across through this Unity Center, see if you can grab this. In other words, if you were cast as on a deserted island, and you had to live there for quite a while, and you wanted to know the truth, the only thing you would need to know this truth is on a piece of paper that I left in my office. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I can't share it with you directly from Eckhart Tolle, but I will share it from the best of my recollection. Thinking isolates everything into a category in which it is given a definition of good or bad or okay enough. But all that thinking does is it isolates everything into a category, as though those conditions, those people, those circumstances were separate and apart from everything else, which they are not. There are no separate conditions, people, or circumstances. There is only one everything. There is only one everything taking place. And to isolate sections of it in judgment of this is bad, or this is good, or this is wrong, or this should be punished, or this is not for me, I think that's bad, you should know better, you should have done better. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. That judgment holds your life in bondage. So thinking isolates everything in a way that we have perception. That perception is fragmented, and until we recognize that our perception is fragmented, there's no way to relieve our awareness of blame, prejudice, fear, desperate wanting, and all kinds of limited concerns. There's no way to do that unless we recognize that the mind must be awakened to its core nature, which is the oneness of God as love, so that you can be living in this awareness while all the trials and tribulations of the world continue on but have no effect on you at all. And by your holding yourself in the consciousness of God, you are doing more to heal not only your life, but the collective consciousness of humanity. That's what you will be doing. Healing your life to bring forth harmony, peace, love, joy, truth. And you'll also be healing the collective consciousness. I'll give you one final illustration. There is in South America a spider that lives along the banks of the Amazon. And when that spider, for some reason or other, wants to travel, it blows a bubble around itself, enters the water, and the water carries that bubble along. And that spider remains in that bubble, and all the choppiness of the river and all the breaking tides and the backwaters have no effect. That bubble remains peaceful and not disturbed. That illustration works for spiritual practice. To enter a state of consciousness which is no longer in the world so that it's tossed to and fro, but it has transcended the illusions that the world shares and lives in the awareness and the presence of God, knows only to bless, release, and be one. So we're going to do that tonight. We're going to practice meditation. And all we are doing in meditation, whatever technique we may decide to use, is we are quieting the incessant thinking of the mind that's in the world. That mind that is forever planning, fearing, wanting, judging, that mind needs to just rest by using some practice to quiet it down. You don't want to try to just force it to be still, you can't. But if you just quiet it down and you have a feeling for some ideal, or you're doing some breathing exercise to focus the mind, or you're using a mantra to just get the mind focused on spiritual truth, then this core nature of reality, the soul connected to the intelligence we know as God, comes into your awareness. It's like that bubble opens up around you and moves you away from the useless, unnecessary suffering of projection. So we're going to do that now, and we're going to start by listening to these beautiful crystal bowls. Allow yourself to just flow in the tone of these beautiful bowls, knowing that regardless of where you're at and what you're doing and what you have planned to do or did in the past, you are okay. The universe has given you permission to be just as stupid as you decide. And so when you decide to be less stupid, that's your choice. But while you're stupid, nobody's trying to get you. God's not going to get you. It's your stupidity, your incorrect definition of life and conditions that cause you to suffer and be anxious and afraid. So we're going to just let that go now and be okay. Let us consider this mantra. There is only one everything, only one. In you, in me, in everything we see, there is only one, only one. There is only one everything. In you and me and everything we see, there is only one, only one. There is only one everything. In you, in me, in everything we see, there is only one, only one, only God. as we go forth from this meditation. Let us not go forth until we pray for those whose names have been submitted to our prayer list. In this refined level of awareness, we share the truth of our interconnectedness with all. So when Norma calls the name, just recognize the joy, peace of God going to that name. Just use joy, peace of God.
Faye Russell, Joel Goodman, Kate Beltrami and family, Wayne and Susan, Marie and Jackie, Bonnie and Hank, Marilyn and Tamia, Scott and Jess, Sherry and Debian, Sue Gifford, Dean and Patsy, Aaron McCarthy, Dave and Leanne, Neil and Donna, Kelly and Lisa, Todd and Michaelina, Brandon and Caitlin, Gary and Gayleen, Corey Ander and family, John Wise, Jessica Rains, Marnie, Kathy, Jonathan James, Jenny Jewett, George Jewett, Larry Morrison, Patrick Phillips, Kat, Marin, Tom, Jay, Shelby, ELT, Tom and Judy, Shelley, Grace, Jordan, Spencer Cobley, Kay, Joe Waddell, Bruce Herrick, Graham, Eva, Tom, Iva, Norma Shopland, Muriel Walker, Joe, Michael, Grace, Bev Alexander, Perry and Oliver Elder, Kay's partner, Kathy, Ryan, Jenny Anderson, Ottawab, Dan Spahn, Diane Spahn, Michael Spahn, Chris Kyogoki, Marissa Snyder, James Schneider, Joshua Morser, Casey Matheson, Brandon McLaughlin, Kaylee Anderson, Steve Hayes, Ari Benson, Serena Benson, Leonard, Teresa, Sandy, Kathy, Marnie, Sandra Bigtree. If you'd like to call out a name at this time, you can do so. You see this healing light surrounding the prayer box and all the people's names that have been submitted throughout the month. We see them healed physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Let us take a moment now to embrace the vision of the new heaven arriving in the consciousness of humanity. Seeing this refined level of joy and peace rising in the awareness of everyone sharing this Boulder community with us. And it rising in the consciousness of everyone sharing the state of Colorado with us. And rising throughout these United States of America. And it moving and rising in the consciousness of every culture, nation, every human being on the planet Earth begins to recognize the pristine majesty of healing peace. And this translates to harmony with all the creatures on this planet. And so we enter the new heaven in earth as we pray. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and God is love. To this we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now. Those of you that are watching this live stream can scroll down to that place that says donate. It will offer you different ways you can donate to Unity of Boulder. Let us just bring into our hands right here that gift we'd like to make to Unity of Boulder. And let's bless it with this offering prayer. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, all that I receive, because I give. And so it is.
So much love around us. If we just open up our heart, it's waiting to come in. It's waiting to come in. There is so much love around us. If we just open up our heart, it's waiting to come in. It's waiting to come in.
Join me now, please. We dedicate this tithe to the will and the work of the Spirit of truth and to the victory of the Spirit of truth. Amen.
Sacred Feminine is meeting tomorrow at 12 noon in the bookstore area, and you have to go into the bookstore. You will smell the freshest sage there's ever been in any store in Boulder. It is the most incredible healing sage. So check that out. You won't miss it if you walk into the store. And it's that it is such a gift from the Native Americans. They really did heal with sage all the time, and it's such a cleansing smell. It's so beautiful. So don't miss it.
On Sunday, we will continue with our services. I expect to be teaching meditation at this Wednesday service time. In the next week or two, I'll be advertising it when I get around to it. So just stay tuned. And Sunday, we'll have our 9 and 11 o'clock services. And Sunday, they're going to begin. There's an interesting process taking place. I need to attend a board meeting following the service, the first service on Sunday. But following the second service, if we can pull it off, we'll begin our separate group work of small groups dealing with particular issues. Anyway, that's what's planned for Sunday. We have tea and cookies for anybody who would like to stay and chat through these doors to your left into the bookstore. To everyone, good night.
Now, I just want to say that
No, you're
this
finished.
child that is sitting there through this meditation, we did that with our children all the time they were growing up. They learned to experience that healing that happens in a group meditation, and they're all meditating. They never stopped. So it is something that will completely keep you healthy and on the right mind, and you will attract jobs that are so incredible because you'll be living with the Creator coming through you, guiding you. You know, you won't be just out there all alone. So, bless you. We hope to see you in the bookstore. We have refreshments.
To everyone, good night.